As of the past few years, I think a lot of Sonic fans are in agreement that Silver the Hedgehog hasn't been given the proper time to shine by Sega in terms of the role he plays in the games. For a while now, Silver has been delegated to side character roles, such as being a somewhat background member of the Resistance during Sonic Forces, and occasionally turning up as a competitor in Sonic racing titles with little to no narrative stakes. I've seen a lot of fans on social media who are determined to see this treatment of Silver change, with a whole entire Silver movement blowing up on Twitter recently. While Silver debuted in possibly the worst performing Sonic game in the series' entire history, his determination to ensure the safety of his future has definitely won over the hearts of many to this day. Though I can't help but wonder, what makes him bounce back so quickly in the face of danger or uncertainty, where his future, often more times than not, is in the middle of a destructive world-ending apocalypse? In today's analysis, we'll be taking a closer look at some of Silver's critical moments during the events of Sonic 06 to understand what makes him so resilient. As well as this, we'll study the deeper meaning behind Silver's decisions and actions, and what they can help us learn about rising from the ashes through our own life difficulties and setbacks. With that all said, let's get started.
So this is where you are. I've been looking for you. What's wrong?
Well, Blaze? To kill someone to save the world. Is that really the right thing to do?
You're so naive. Whether it's right or wrong, I can't really say. But what I do know is, if we don't take this chance, the future will remain exactly as it is.
Since he's after Dr. Eggman, let's sneak into Eggman's base. Maybe we'll learn something new.
This cutscene reveals two specific things that are crucial in helping Silver remain resilient while on his mission to save the future. Discussing each of these things in turn, let's start with the first, which would be the presence of some sort of social support for Silver. According to Professor Anne Maston, known for her research on the development of resilience, it involves having everyday systems of support such as relationships. I think it's worth pointing out with this in mind that, especially during the earlier parts of his story, Silver seemed more confident in his decisions and actions whenever he was in the company of someone else, and they could confirm to him in their own way that he should go through with what he feels is appropriate to do, given the circumstances. Of course, at the beginning of the story, we were introduced to Blaze being Silver's companion in the future destroyed by Iblis, with Amy becoming the tag-along once Silver and Blaze got separated after Mephiles sent them back to the past. But here lies the difference in how Blaze and Amy were being supportive of Silver. Whenever he would jump into action, he would usually turn to Blaze almost as if looking for approval from her as a mentor. However, in Amy's case, despite not knowing that she and Silver were both looking for Sonic and for very different reasons, she still offered to help Silver and keep him company. It's only the point at which Amy realizes that their ideals are in direct opposition that she decides to leave Silver's side, paving the way for the doubt he expresses upon reuniting with Blaze. Now, Blaze in fact highlights the second thing contributing to Silver's resilience in this cutscene. Blaze called Silver naive a few times throughout the course of their journey, but I believe the reason why she calls him that in this particular instance is because Silver had temporarily lost sight of the significance of their goal and what it means to the both of them. Sure, Blaze shows that she understands the moral ambiguity of the means by which they're going to save the future, but her determination to carry on in spite of this is what she's trying to demonstrate to Silver. Because he should know more than anyone how desperate he is to see the blue sky above their home. I say this since it's evident from the couple times Silver momentarily stops what he's doing to appreciate the beauty of the surrounding nature and environment. This is most notable when he first arrives in the past and finds the resolve to move forward after appreciating the lush green trees and vegetation. Things that he could only imagine up until now were reality in his future. The second example would be when Silver was in Amy's company, where Silver yet again found his resolve after taking in the sights of the desert. So what I'm really trying to say is, a goal that's meaningful to us and that we feel so strongly for is sometimes the only thing that gives us the drive we need to keep going when things get tough and we feel there's no way forward. How far you'll go to achieve your initial goal will show just how much it means to you. The way I see it, if you find you lack the motivation to keep working towards something when faced with certain setbacks or difficulties, it's not quite an indication that you lack resilience. It might in fact just be that your goal doesn't have as much meaning to you as you thought. I think it only becomes a true lack of resilience if your goal has a specific meaning to you, but you give up at one of the hurdles anyway. At this point, having secure relationships with people who support you and whatever you're trying to accomplish can be a big help. In my case, I've realized these things every time I feel like giving up on something challenging. I know I'm that kind of person who loves to dive headfirst into a difficult task, probably stemming from the strong passion for learning I had back when I was a kid at school, but I only ever did this whenever I was really wanting to be able to complete such tasks, like really hard algebra problems, and had the social support encouraging me. In the end, I managed to push through despite my lackluster math skills and hopelessness at the time, because I always reminded myself of how amazing the satisfaction would feel once emerging at the other end of the tunnel. This example of me at school is probably on the simpler side, but I guess it just goes to show how recognizing when you're most up to the challenge will help you keep the expectations for yourself realistic and within your capacity so that you don't become so hard on yourself. In the next section of this video, we'll identify 2 more things that contribute to Silver's resilience and really help him begin to overcome obstacles: willpower and insight.
That's a Chaos Emerald. It said this gem can transform your thoughts into power. Collect 7, and a miracle's supposed to happen. Keep it as a lucky charm.
It transforms your thoughts into power.
For all the inconsistencies and confusion Sonic 06's narrative might bring up regarding the series' lore and canon, it gets one important thing right about the Chaos Emeralds: the fact that they can transform thoughts into power. We've seen Tikal first hinting at this in her incantation from Sonic Adventure, and we've seen it demonstrated time and time again whenever Sonic or any of the other characters use the emeralds to transform into their super forms. As we know, these are powered by positive, or sometimes even negative, thoughts. I'd like to propose more specifically, though, that in the Sonic universe, wielding any sort of energy or power generated from thoughts can also be seen as a form of exercising willpower, referred to by the Cambridge Dictionary as the ability to control your own thoughts and behavior, especially in difficult situations. I bring this suggestion up because, if it's indeed the case, then the way Silver uses his willpower in Sonic 06 to help him build resilience becomes very interesting. Even before discovering what the Chaos Emeralds were, and let alone getting the chance to use their power, Silver was already very capable of transforming his thoughts into a kind of power only he can use. The power of the mind, if you will. Or rather, psychokinesis. In other words, by being able to lift and manipulate objects in the environment using only his thoughts and little to no physical exertion, Silver demonstrates how strong his willpower really is. We can see this more clearly in his gameplay, where you need to use his psychokinesis to manipulate objects in different ways, in order to progress further in a level. Silver's thoughts and behavior act as one, Whereas for us, we would need to think of doing something before physically exerting our bodies to some extent to do it. Now we can't forget to consider what this all means for Silver's super form. The designs of each of the hedgehogs in the Triple S when they transform almost make them look ethereal and not of the physical world. Instead, they all become beacons of hope. And while gaining invulnerability in flight, their base abilities get a massive upgrade. The power of Silver's psychokinesis is multiplied, and he can effortlessly throw back several pieces of large debris towards Solaris. All these details showcase how Silver has progressed from struggling to find the confidence in his own actions to becoming one with himself and the other two hedgehogs to be completely aware and in control of his willpower. But not even such strong willpower alone has been able to help Silver throughout his adventure. The main force at play during his and the other hedgehog stories was Mephiles. He was the sole reason for Silver and Blaze deciding to leave the future to travel back in time in the first place. Mephiles was also responsible for intentionally giving the duo false information regarding who the Iblis Trigger was. Of course, we learned later on that the state of the future was a consequence of Elise dying on board Eggman's airship as it crashed. But that's besides the point. The thing is, with Mephiles' deception and psychological exploitation of Silver's desire to save his home, he deprived Silver of the correct knowledge and insight he needed to pull through. As psychiatrist Rachel Yehuda and her colleagues point out, resilience is a process of consciously moving forward with both meaning and insight, even when difficulties or feelings like doubt or worry persist. Yehuda describes this form of resilience as a reintegration of the self, and this seems like an accurate description of what Silver experiences once he travels back in time with Shadow to the point at which the Solaris project fails. It's here where Silver learns that Sonic has nothing to do with Iblis, and that Iblis was sealed inside Elise, her tears essentially being the true Iblis trigger, instead of it being a person per se. This new insight therefore enables Silver to exercise better judgment when considering what to do next, and thus he journeys with Sonic and Blaze to save Elise from Eggman's airship, a demonstration of willpower that's no longer misguided. Silver really reminds me of the young protagonists you often find in shonen anime. They sometimes don't begin with much knowledge or experience in the field where they want to achieve goals, but you start to realize just how formidable they are once they show their habit of pushing through and bouncing back from countless setbacks. While many might see Blaze's sacrifice at the end of Silver's story as nothing but pointless, since she doesn't do much throughout, I see her sacrifice as yet another setback Silver had to overcome with his resilience. He was so reluctant to say goodbye to her for what was assumed to be forever. The removal of 06's events from the timeline aside. And to this day, especially evident in the IDW comics, Silver has had to keep traveling to the past to save his future, something he could only do continuously thanks to his never-give-up attitude. He's such a great character, an example of what true resilience looks like with so much potential, and it's high time that he gets the recognition he deserves in the Sonic games yet to come. I'd like to end off our discussion by saying this. Whether you're able to be resilient depends on how much you value the power of your mind over matter. Whenever you find yourself failing at something or encountering an obstacle in the way, you need to think about the meaning behind your goal. Look for guidance and support from the people who care about you, gather correct and sufficient information to help inform your next steps, and most importantly, you need to believe in yourself. Only by doing these things can you avoid having regrets and become a few steps closer to achieving your dreams of an absolution. That's all for now, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. It feels so good to return to my analysis content after a short break, and I knew it was time to talk about Silver. He's been getting quite a bit of spotlight lately in both fan and official capacity, so I really hope this means we get to see more of him soon, particularly in his own game. He honestly really deserves one by now. I guess logically the next character to discuss will have to be Blaze, so stay tuned for that in about 2 weeks. I'm due to start the next year of my psychology studies, but I'll still try my best to get a video out every fortnight. If you enjoyed today's video, consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth takes on the Sonic characters just like this one. Anyways, thanks again everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Take care.